From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show. Here we are, rocking it on the Automotive ADHD Show. I am Matt West here to talk about cars, car things, your car sounds. Generally speaking, I think we are going to be talking about cars today. I am the host of this show. I've got lots to get to. This one's a really packed show. This was a busy week of interesting automotive-related things. We're going to get to a little bit of course, news. We're going to talk about the Fed's interest rate hike and how that is going to affect cars, and importantly, car loans. Also, the new International Scout, that's going to I say new. That's your hint there. The International Scout is going to make a return as a Volkswagen. I don't know about that, but we're going to talk about it. Also, I'm going to answer a listener-submitted question and talk about why you shouldn't pour Coke into your gas tank, obviously. But my good friend of the show, OBD1 Kenobi, is going to join me in the third half to discuss what exactly happens when you do that. So anyway, it has been like I said, a very busy week. One other thing I have also done is I created a TikTok. That social media platform. I know I finally caved to it. I said I was never going to do it. I did it. If you want to follow me on it, Automotive ADHD Podcast on TikTok. I've been posting this past week a bunch of stuff from the garage, working on cars, couple of different things, clips from the show as well. If you are a staunch person who does not like TikTok, that's okay. Just download it and subscribe to me and no one else, and you will be fine. You will be fine. So anyway, ladies, gentlemen, AutoZam AZ1s. Before we talk about the interest rates and the new Scout, something interesting I saw. Someone in Germany was remodeling their house when they were tearing down some walls, when they discovered a room that they had used for years, the pantry in their house. And they'd always thought, it's kind of weird that the ceiling is so low and has this curved shape to it. Well, they discovered after tearing the walls down that hiding behind the walls was a Ford Transit van. Yeah, this is interesting. So apparently the house was built sometime in the mid to late 1950s. And so this is a kind of 1950s era transit van. And of course, it looks to my American listeners and to people like me as well who are like, oh, what's a transit van? Well, it looks a lot, in this case, it looks a lot like a VW bus, to give you some visual context. It looks similar to that. And what's interesting is, of course I have to give Peter Holderith from the Drive a hat tip for finding this one. But what's interesting about it is this van would not have been very old when it was parked here. And someone literally parked a van in this spot. And apparently the history of this home and this property was it initially was a popular place to camp, and then someone decided to finally build a house there. And the leading theory is someone parked this van, was living out of it, and decided, okay, well, I bought the property, and I'm living out of this van while I build my house, and we'll just leave the van here, Or I would like to, hypothesize that someone just, I don't know, maybe the van broke down, and they said, yep. This is a sign from the gods. This is a sign from old Henry Ford himself that this is where we must build this house. And so they did. I don't know. My theory might be a little out there, but regardless, it's one of those interesting things you see every now and then. These stories of people remodeling homes and coming across weird stuff, be it, old booze, old whiskey, money, guns, razor blades, baby dolls, creepy, weird stuff. No, this one, a whole freaking van. Yeah. And, this family said they had been using this pantry. So part of the van was split up into the pantry, and then the other part was actually a bathroom. So the back half of the van was where the bathroom was. And again, they said the curvature of the roof in these two rooms, it just didn't make a lot of sense. They were, like the rest of the house isn't like this. Why is this that way? And little did they know, almost 70 years of this family, having their kids, and then them having kids and grandkids, a whole generation of of people growing up in this house. Little did they know they were growing up inside a van. I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. And, it makes me think, like, the only thing I question is, why didn't it look more like a van on the inside? Why would you go to all the trouble to build the house around the car and then not have some semblance of a car on the inside? Like, me as a car enthusiast, I would do this, but I would want people to know that, yeah, this room looks like the inside of a van, because it is. I don't know. That's just my taste in homes. There's also a good reason why realtors don't like people like me. So, because if I had my way and I built the house however I wanted to, good luck to the next guy trying to sell it. It would appeal to me and me alone, and maybe you as well, but not many other people. I would say that much. But anyway, very interesting story there. Hopefully someone will take this van now and, I don't know, either incorporate it into the new section of house they're building. I feel like they have to keep it. I feel like they do. They are bound by honor to keep this thing either in some capacity as part of the house, or, I don't know, maybe restore it, try to get it running. Looks a little crusty for that, in my opinion. It might be a little too far gone, but, doing something else with it would be interesting. And of all the things you could find behind the walls of your house, a Ford Transit van's not one of the worst. So anyway, there you go. Would I do this? Of course I would do this. Of course I would. Now, before we get into the rest of that, I want to talk a little bit too about let's move on to the new International Scout, because and again, I say new because Volkswagen recently acquired a company that also owned International. And to give you some context, the International Scout was a Jeep-like SUV. It's more like a Ford Bronco, made in the 1960s and up, that was really popular. It was maybe second to the Bronco, second to the Jeep, second or third to the Jeep, but it was a popular alternative, when these short SUVs were really coming into style and really becoming popular. The Scout was made by a company, again, called International, sometimes known as International Harvester. They make, International for decades has made a lot of farm equipment. They've made a lot of construction equipment, a lot of, heavy-duty, semi-trucks and things like that. That's what International has made. And they did decide at one point to do a consumer vehicle, which became the Scout. And ultimately, then, that also became the Scout 2. And the Scout 2, a friend of mine in high school had a virtually entirely restored Scout 2, and it was the coolest thing around. I mean, when we talk about American car companies, right, we always talk about one of my favorites, American Motors, the little brother, the underdog, trying to fight with General Motors and Dodge and Ford. International was competing with all of them too. But it was, in terms of popularity, I would say, they didn't really have many offerings like AMC did. They were maybe a rung below AMC, which that is saying something. Now, that's not to say they made poor quality vehicles. They were known for, I won't say dependability. That's maybe a bit of a stretch, but they were known for their ruggedness, right? They're, throw it down the trail and go type of vehicle. And they did have famously issues with rust. Apparently, when they would build these Internationals, they would leave the frame rail. So they would weld up the frames and everything, get them ready to go, and then leave the frames in a pile outside of the factory, untreated, uncoated, unpainted, sitting in the rain, and then they would bring them inside and assemble them, and the rust would get inside of the frame rails, like picture like a box frame, right? The rust would be inside of there. Then they would paint over all of it, and they came with rust from the factory. Famously, that was an issue they had. So I won't say they were the utmost in, quality, but they were interesting. They were cool. Again, I love the story of underdog car manufacturers, trying their best to compete with the big three. I think a good underdog story is always fun. It's always cool to be contrary to the current trend that, GM, Ford, and Dodge are going to, and something about that's kind of neat. You're not following the herd. I like that about the International. Now, where this comes into the year 2022, which is now, and is Volkswagen purchased purchased the International Harvester Company. It was just a little while back. They've been sitting on it, but they announced on their Twitter just earlier this week saying, "This is for you, #USA." They say they will produce a all-electric pickup truck and rugged SUV. They're saying the strong, iconic brand Scout gets electrified. Okay. All right. Yeah, all this great news about the comeback of the Scout, and it's going to be an EV. I feel like this is happening to a lot of stuff. This cool old car brand that we like, this cool old nameplate. We want to bring it back and invoke feelings of nostalgia for this old nameplate. Psst, by the way, it's going to be an EV. I don't know why, part of me, just for the sake of argument here, I think it might be, genuinely, I do think this will be a fun vehicle. It'll be interesting to see what Volkswagen does. We certainly have no shortage of boxy SUVs now, of course, with the Ford Bronco, becoming popular, with Rivian making electric pickup trucks, electric SUVs as well. We've talked about that. There's no shortage of this, but also part of me kind of, it's like when Hollywood makes a remake of a movie that really didn't need to have a remake. They're just cashing in on the existing name value. It's a cheap out. It is a easy way to market and sell to people who, might be skeptical of the brand and say, "Oh, I remember the Scout. The Scout was a good truck. I liked the Scout. Oh, well, this is an EV. Ooh, it's a Scout. It must also have all the things that I like about the Scout," which it's a different vehicle. It's an entirely different vehicle. So again, using my analogy of Hollywood, this is when Hollywood, endlessly remakes classic films that, should just be left to be classic. They should be enjoyed in their original form. I'm always of the opinion that Hollywood should come up with new stories, come up with new stuff that's fun, generate a whole new fan base, a whole new culture around a new story you have. That's completely original in the same way these classic films that we regard as classics now did when they were new. They were new concepts. They hadn't been done before, and they generated a fan base because of that. Just simply making a sequel to it or a remake is just lazy from a creative standpoint. And I feel like that's what they're doing with the Scout. Ooh, we're going to make, Volkswagen, we're going to make a new EV SUV thing that's rugged, and it'll take on the Ford Bronco and the Jeep Wrangler, and we bought the International brand. All they did was they might have bought the brand. They might have bought a lot of the industrial equipment with it. That might have been why it was a smart business decision. But in this case, they're not reusing anything from the original Scout. It is a ground-up new vehicle, and I don't blame you. Like, why would you reuse a vehicle from, 60 years ago or whatever? But that's fine. I mean, it's a new vehicle. It might be really good. It's going to have good power. Probably it's electric, so it's going to be torquey, right? Why not just come up with a new nameplate? Come up with something interesting that's cool and that really gets people in on this idea. That's what the original creators of vehicles like the Bronco, the Scout, when they were fresh ideas to the market, they were completely new, untrusted brands. They hadn't had anything backing them up before. Obviously, Ford had a long history of manufacturing, but when they came out with the Bronco, there was nothing on the market like it. The closest thing you had was the CJ5 Jeep, and that was a little more stripped out and a little more bare bones than even the original Broncos were. So, that was a more raw experience, you could say. And the Bronco brought some refinement and some luxury to it by 1960 standards. So, same thing. International comes out with a Bronco competitor as well. International, a very unknown brand. They did it, and they were successful with it. So, why automakers can't do that now? It just tells me it's cheap marketing. We're taking the easiest path, which, they're in the business of making money. They're going to take the easy path. But instead of creating their own thing that is unique and cool and developing a dedicated group of customers who really like it, they're just cashing in on an old nameplate, hoping that'll get people to like it. And I think that's just a poor way to do things. It's the, cheap way to do it. That's the, way that also, in my opinion, kind of tarnishes the original. In some ways, when a new car like this comes out that's named after the original, you will see that it will boost sales of the original, right? It boosts hype in that original thing. Look at how much Ford Bronco prices went up when Ford announced they were going to start making the new Bronco. And then when those went in production, people started getting them. If you want to get a classic Bronco now, you're spending a lot of money, especially one of the very early body style ones, not talking like the O.J. Simpson, era of Ford Bronco, but some of the early ones. The hype on those went up massively. But likewise, that doesn't help you as a manufacturer a whole lot, because those cars have already been made. They've already been produced. People are buying them used. You as a manufacturer haven't made any money off of that car or the hype of people buying the used version of that car from 60 years ago. Ford made their money on that 60 years ago. It's irrelevant to them now. But that said, Ford did a good job with it. They did a lot of things right. The new Bronco is interesting. It's got all the right bits of retro styling, and it hits all the right bases, right? It's just left up to time to see if Volkswagen can do this with the Scout brand. Then again, I don't know if they would be selling these Scout models in their own dealerships. That's unlikely. They would probably be selling them in Volkswagen dealerships. And no one who wants a true American piece of history, a true piece of Americana, is walking into a Volkswagen dealership looking for it. They're not. And that's not to, say anything bad about the Germans. I mean, I do talk crap about German products and Volkswagens in particular, and how finicky maintenance on them can be and things like that. Overall, they're all right cars, but you buy those because you want a Volkswagen. You don't walk into the Volkswagen dealership because you want a piece of American history. You don't. That's not what you walk in there for. So I have a feeling they're probably going to be missing their demographic with this. That's just conjecture. That's just, a theory of mine right now. They say that the production of the International Scout, the new Scout, will go in. They'll actually start producing these in 2026, which that's amazing, because all they have right now are some sketches online that they posted, some side profiles, like very much early preliminary design stage. To see a car like this hit production in 4 years, and it's electric, and it's supposed to be rugged, dependable, durable, live up to the original nameplate, that's going to be a challenge. I mean, Volkswagen's a massive auto manufacturer, a massive piece of the industry. Volkswagen Group obviously owning Audi and Lamborghini and Volkswagen and, Porsche and all these things. They're huge. They can do it, but it'll be interesting to see what they do and if they can actually land their demographic with this, and if they can compete well with the Jeep Wrangler, the Ford Bronco, all of the above. So there you go. Now that's a thing. The International Scout, it's coming back. We'll see what it does. Anyway, I got more great stuff we are going to get to right here after the break.
At the Speed Council, getting things done fast is our priority. We do everything fast, from driving, working, sleeping, and eating.
Someone help, he's choking!
This is Tim.
Hello.
And by the time this ad is over, he'll have bicycled across the earth 69 times. Nice. Even if our name sounds unfamiliar, you know our work. F1? Pfft, child's play. The world's first supersonic jet? Yep, that was us. Apollo 11? Also us. The fastest animal in the sea? Hell, we even wrote the Wikipedia article. Fast. And we're so dedicated to speed that we've genetically engineered the world's first hyperspeed speed machine. With this scientific breakthrough, you can download your favorite automotive podcast a whole day early. How's that for fast? Patreon.com/Throttle Warrior. Donate now. Download the show early and receive special perks. This message approved by the Speed Council and the Church of Fast Things.
All right, there we go. That is Scott and his turbocharged Honda Del Sol. How cool is that? That's just silly. I just love the idea of a turbo Del Sol. The Del Sol, by the way, is a weird little footnote in Honda history that has a D-Series single cam engine in it with the turbo. He's like, no, I'm not B-Series swapping. I'm not doing any of that. Screw it. We're just sticking a turbo on the factory single cam D-Series and sending it. I respect that. That's a lot of fun. Now, if you would like, as Scott did as well, if you would like to send your car sounds into the show, I can only encourage you to do that because for some reason, of course, I gain entertainment from listening to these car sounds and I enjoy playing them here. Hopefully you enjoy them as well. You can send those in facebook.com/automotive-ADHD, matt@throttlewarrior.com. And of course, when you send those car sounds in, you are also entered for a chance to win the Automotive ADHD keychain and the $25 gift card to a parts store. So you can get, those good auto parts. So very good stuff. And of course, you can't enter to win if you don't enter. So there's no chance of winning if you don't enter. So obviously, I think it's worth your time to do it. Nikos in Sweden, he finally did get his package. It only took like a month for international shipping. But you know what? It got there. And that is what counts. I will ship it to wherever in the world I can. As long as there is mail service in your country, I reckon I can ship it over there. And Brad, of course, from this last month's winner, Brad, I don't think, looking at tracking, it's been delivered yet, and he lives just like 70 miles from me, so there's the beauty of, well, let's not talk about the post service right now. If you want to talk about the American Postal Service, let's go listen to a previous episode that I did about the new mail truck that they're getting and the whole controversy around that. Now, anyway, I want to get into, before we talk about interest rates and money and, exciting stuff, right? There was a guy the other day who got busted, check this out, for doing 165 miles an hour in his Hellcat. Now, not surprising. Hellcat owner gets in trouble for speeding. Oh, big deal. They do that all the time. Oh, Hellcat owner does 165. Big deal. They do 200. That happens all the time. But what's funny about this is, and I have to give, let me pull him up here. I have to give Caleb Jacobs the hat tip for this story. But it comes out of Oklahoma. Dude was doing $165 when the Oklahoma Highway Patrol clocked him on radar. That means the cop was just, sitting there with his radar gun going, 45, 45, 55, 165, 45. Wait, hold on. As one of these isn't like the other. Anyway, the cop gives him a ticket for $450, which, if you're familiar with any sort of speeding, if you have received a speeding ticket at some point in your life, you might be saying, what? $450 for 165 miles an hour? That is getting off easy, which it is. That is totally getting off way easy. And so, for instance, in Virginia, just as an example, I was looking this up, it's $6 for every mile an hour over the speed limit, and that's where it starts. Virginia is famous for its being the whole state is a speed trap, essentially. Now, here in Colorado, it's $10. It depends on which county you live in, obviously, here in Colorado. Generally speaking, and where I'm from, the county I live in, it's $10 for every mile an hour over the speed limit. Ask me how I know. So, that being said, so if that was the case, $10 every mile an hour over the speed limit, 165 miles an hour, $1,650? Yeah, $1,650. So that's what that would come out to, even just here in Colorado. Now, this guy, nothing else. I mean, look, when you go that fast, I don't speak for every state. Obviously, if you live in another country, a great number of my listeners live in Europe and other places. This may not apply to you, but you get at least get some insight into how we do things here in the United States. Typically, 25 miles an hour over the speed limit is a threshold in a lot of places where it goes from being a traffic offense, which is minor and doesn't go on your record as a citizen or anything like that, and you just pay the ticket. It might go on your insurance, but otherwise not a big deal. But 25 miles an hour is usually the threshold of where it transitions from a traffic offense to a misdemeanor criminal offense, which means that is an actual crime now. The same as if you, committed shoplifting under a certain value, or the same as if you did, some sort of like misdemeanor assault. It's regarded the same way. So it's a lot more serious when you get a misdemeanor for doing 25 miles an hour over the speed limit, which 25 is pretty low amount to be doing over, especially since every modern car can safely do 100 miles an hour now for the most part. That's a whole nother topic for another day, if we should be raising speed limits or if we should be reassessing our driver education system that doesn't actually teach people how to drive, because the big push right now is, we need to lower our speed limits. Pete Buttigieg, our transportation secretary here in the United States, is famously now has been saying that he's going to spend a huge amount of money in a push to reduce the national speed limit. Reduce it! Yeah, not getting political here, but reducing the speed limit when modern vehicles are capable of speeds well in excess of when we set the national speed limit like 50 years ago, and they can go faster, they can stop faster, they can turn faster. They're just generally better. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic. Obviously, I have mentioned this before with the driver's ed system. Scroll back to that podcast feed and you'll find my thoughts on that. I do believe the driver's ed system here in the United States is very much broken, and the result of that is drivers who really aren't qualified to be driving, and that's why you're getting an increase in traffic accidents and all these statistics that folks are citing as a reason to reduce the speed limits. I believe reducing the speed limits will do nothing. You need to create better drivers, more importantly, especially as distractions and social media and screens in cars become more prevalent. So anyway, I digress. This dude got off easy, 165 miles an hour, $450 ticket, no other criminal thing or anything, just, pay the ticket, have a nice day. I think that's because in looking at the ticket, which the Highway Patrol there in Oklahoma posted on their Twitter page, speeding 41 miles an hour or more over the speed limit is the charge he got. I have a feeling that's sort of a blanket thing. It doesn't matter if it's 41 miles an hour or 200 miles an hour. That's just the upper category. I have a feeling that's how they do things. And officially, again, I cannot condone that you do this. That's a huge amount of speed to be going on a public road where, so much as hitting a small rodent, a small animal or something is going to, deflect the car enough that you're going to have to take corrective action at that speed and maybe spin out at that speed. You're relying a lot on the assumption that the driver is a good driver. And obviously, you don't need to be a good driver to be able to buy a 700 horsepower V8 Hellcat supercharged, obviously fast car. You don't have to be a good driver. You just have to have money. That's one thing too. Perhaps also a topic for another day, that money does not buy driving skill. And that's been proven over and over again by lots of supercar owners. You can find tons of crash compilations on the internet, of supercar owners crashing their stuff. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about other expensive things, not just Hellcats, not just supercars. No. Let's talk about interest rates, finances. Trust me, this will be exciting, and if anything, at least it'll be informative, because earlier this month, the Fed here in the U.S. raised interest rates across the board a whole half point. And only half a point. Doesn't sound like a lot. Well, when you actually look into this, that is the highest jump in short-term interest rates in more than 20 years. The last time this happened was in the year 2000. So that is a very big deal. And before we talk about that, to explain it further, here's a clip from CBS's business analyst, Jill Schlesinger. And here's what she has to say on that.
Well, this move was expected, and it's intended to thread a very precise needle. We're trying to see if the Fed can ease prices without triggering a recession or job losses. Now, this hike means you may see interest rates rise on everything from credit card balances to new auto loans, adjustable rate mortgages, even some small business loans.
So there you go. The key point that she mentioned that is relevant to us here on this, being a car show is car loans, auto loans. Yeah, so this will cause a substantial jump in interest rates across all sorts of automotive loans, which is, they've already been very high with automotive demand being the way it is. When you look at this, Edmunds reports that the average used car payment is $538 a month. That's for used cars. Last week, we talked about the average new car payment, and it's a lot higher, like think $800 or more. But having said that, $538 a month for used cars. And in an interview with Christian Shaw, writer from The Drive, the Edmunds executive director, her name's Jessica Cadwell, said, quote, in the past, interest rate hikes didn't affect the new car market significantly because automakers subsidize many loans. Now, she goes on to say, quote, automakers still do subsidize many loans, hence the average new vehicle financed at a dealer has a 4.7% APR. That said, since inventory is so tight right now, automakers have less motivation to offer low interest rate loans since it is technically an incentive program, end quote. So that's her thoughts there. And that is interesting. And that is telling to this point when you look at how things are working, the way the used car market is. Automakers offer incentives and financing incentives, especially when they're trying to move inventory really fast, when they have a surplus of cars, when they have for example, an outgoing model of a certain car, the new generation of it, the new model has come out. They have a huge supply on dealerships of the, say the 2019 model, and say 2021 now, and it's now 2022, and there's a new one out, a whole ground up new model. Well, they'll let those go, and you'll see ads for, 0% APR on this for however many months, and, finance with us, and you'll get a deal on the interest rate, or interest rates as low as this. That's because they're trying to move that inventory. But the problem is now there isn't inventory to move. They do not have, because of the automotive chip shortage, they do not have nearly as much inventory already because of the way people are buying cars right now as well. They just don't. New inventory is low. Used inventory is low. This has been a thing we've covered on this show for months, like 6 months now. And raising the interest rates are also going to cause a problem because automakers already weren't offering as many incentives on cars because of the inventory struggle. Well, now the interest rates on those cars that aren't getting any incentives or any discounts is going to be even higher because of that. Banks are going to be loaning that money. Obviously, the auto manufacturer is underwriting these loans through a lot of its own banks and banks that it works with. But regardless, whether it's your personal bank you're doing the loan with, whether it's the finance guy at the car dealership who's underwriting that loan through the manufacturer's bank or one of their affiliates, doesn't matter. Banks are going to be loaning money at a higher rate as far as how much it costs to do the loan. Obviously, think that your interest rate is the cost of the loan over the term of the loan. That's how much money the bank is profiting on you by loaning you that money, because banks are also, this is amazing, in the business of making money. I know I say that a lot, but it's very true, and it is always the explanation. It always holds true as to why manufacturers, auto manufacturers, and things and people do the things that they do. You can always trace that when you follow the money. Oh, yeah, they're in the business of making money, and it's cheaper for them to do this, and they can sell this for more, or whatever. That's usually always going to be your reason. Oh, why doesn't this manufacturer sell this? We all want this. Well, see previous statement, basically. So now the result of this is people are going to buy older and cheaper cars. I foresee that because buying an older car means that it's going to be more heavily depreciated, and you as a buyer are going to be paying less for it. And if you're taking out an auto loan to buy a used car, and that used car is cheaper, well, the interest rate's higher, but you're still getting into roughly the same amount of money. When I was in college, I spent a summer working as a car salesman, and the thing that we always pushed was, not how much you can afford, but, what's the total price? No, the question was always, well, what can you do monthly? Because a lot of auto buyers, a lot of consumers who just buy cars to get around, us as auto enthusiasts, we think this is crazy because we buy cars a little differently than the rest of people out there. But the average consumer, doesn't look at this as I can afford a $35,000 car. No, they look at this, I can afford $550 a month on my car payment. And that's what you'll always find an auto salesman going off of too. Well, what's your monthly? What can you afford monthly? And that's a dangerous question because that also gets you into, 72-month car loans at a very high interest rate, the very bad car loans. 72 months, when you go with these longer term loans, you're losing more depreciation on the car by the end of that loan. That car at the end of the loan is not worth what you bought it for. Granted, you lost the same amount of money roughly you will have lost the same amount of money as if you had bought it new in cash. But the problem is you also have that interest rate to contend with. The depreciation of the car is irrelevant. But if you're at a 10% interest rate, then over the course of that 72 months, you're going to be paying thousands upon thousands of dollars in interest, depending on the actual principal cost of the car. So that's a little insight into how obviously that works. Also, just a little bit of a tip when you go to a car dealer, the question, how much can you afford every month? That is a loaded question. What's your monthly? That is a very loaded question. The best thing you can do is either buy in cash if you have the ability to, or if it makes sense from a business perspective. Oh, I'm going to put this on a loan because I don't want to tie up other capital in this at the moment because I have my other capital invested, for example. But what makes sense with this is getting the lowest term length of the loan that you can, like a 48-month car loan. That's usually what I like, is a 48-month loan. Yeah, the payment's higher, but you pay it off faster. And say you have a 10% is a very high interest rate. It'd be something like 4.5%, 3 to 4, 5%, depending on your credit. But having said that, you're going to pay less money in interest because the interest is over the term of the loan. And if the term is shorter, that's less interest. Now, what I predict, though, is, again, we're going to see a lot of people buying cheaper used cars. And what that is going to do is that is also going to put an even tighter crunch on the used car market. It's already pretty tight. I mean, the past couple of years with the pandemic and the chip shortage has already caused folks to start buying used cars. I mean, this is why you see Toyota, Corollas, 2007 Toyota Corollas with 490,000 miles. Some guy on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist is like, $10,000, no low ballers. You know that meme, the no low ballers. I know what I have. Yeah, I know it's an old crusty Corolla, but I know what I have. So I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see an even higher jump in the cost of used cars. For us being auto enthusiasts, where does that leave us? I mean, a lot of us already buy really, really cheap cars. I mean, like very cheap cars. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think cars that are the, average 10 years old of a new car are going to be, I think those are where the average car on the road right now, what I'm getting at, is about 10 years old, and that's going to be the average used car trading around between average families. Again, we're not talking auto enthusiasts. Again, we do things a little bit differently. We don't always buy cars the same way, and we don't always make rational money purchases, but, that is what it is. Now, at the end of the day, I think if you have a used car to sell, you might make a little bit of profit, but I'm never a fan of just playing into the overall market because that makes things worse for everyone. People buying things at what more than they're worth encourages people to sell things for more than they're worth, obviously. But at the end of the day, should you really take financial advice from a car show host who is, let me put it this way, I'm still holding on to my GameStop shares. Yeah, GME. We're still going to the moon. I'm diamond handing that stock all the way into the ground. Just, I'll have you know that much. So take that with a grain of salt. That's what's going on with used cars right now. Now, coming up in the next segment of the show, OBD1 Kenobi is going to be answering a question you never knew you had. What happens when you pour gas, or Coke rather, into the gas tank? That's right here.
And now for how things work with an engineer.
Engines. Spin.
And that was how things work with an engineer. For more of how things work, go to patreon.com/throttlewarrior.
Oh yeah, that is Steve Kraft, his Porsche 911 Turbo. That's an older car sound. I just had to dig it up. I was going through my huge list of car sounds. I have quite a lot of them now. So many folks have sent them in, have had themselves entered for a chance to win the Automotive ADHD keychain and a $25 auto parts store gift card. But I came across his again, and I just said, oh my God, I got to play it again. It's been months since I played that one. It's an insane flyby. It's a classic air-cooled Porsche Turbo. It's just mental stuff. I love that. Car sounds, I like them. You're no stranger to that, at least. And send those in if you want to get them on the show. Now, one thing a listener sent in to me was interesting. So they sent in a screenshot of a piece of clickbait. You know clickbait. Obviously, you're familiar with it, even if hypothetically you don't know the term. I mean, obviously, it's advertising and things on the internet that are designed to get you to click because they look outrageous or say something completely bonkers, like click this now to remove wrinkles in 3 days, some stupid stuff like that, right? Well, this one features something a little more interesting, especially to me. It caught my eye. It shows somebody pouring a bottle of Coke, as in the soda, into the gas tank of a car. And it says, simple trick to lower car fuel consumption by 55%. Ooh, exciting, right? Well, when you actually click the ad, it takes you to this really stupid OBD2 connector that claims to reduce fuel consumption, which I argue if that's really even possible to do through, the diagnostic port on a ECU for an ECU on a OBD2 car. I question if that's even legitimate, but you know what? They're running this type of ad. I would assume they're not legitimate, but it takes you to this stupid thing. It has nothing to do with pouring Coke in the gas tank of the car. And what's interesting is scrolling through Twitter, you discover tons of people posting about similar things from all sorts of other countries. It's becoming some sort of trend for not even, this advertiser, for tons of different ones to, claim number one way to save $2 a gallon. Same picture of this guy pouring Coke in the gas tank. I want to know what sort of person is coming up with this level of marketing. I mean, really, really. There's another one here. It comes from Germany, and it's in German. I'll refrain from reading it because I don't speak German, but it shows someone holding a dishwasher tab up to the the filler nozzle on their car. And presumably the German that I can't read on here would say something about save money on gas. We're seeing this a lot because gas is going up, and we're seeing all of this really shady marketing trying to get you to buy products to lower the cost of gas. It's ridiculous. We've talked about gas prices, but there's another one here. I'm scrolling through the feed here as I'm reading this. Someone pouring ketchup. It's a bottle of ketchup in their fuel tank. It's got big old arrows pointing at it. Save your gas with this. Is anyone taking this seriously? I know these adverts are just designed to get you to click on them, but hypothetically, right? What would happen if you looked at this ad and you were not a very intelligent person and you said, "Oh, I see this ad." You don't click on it. "Oh, okay. Coke in the gas tank. Oh, it can save gas. 55% of my fuel economy. It can save that. Ooh, let me try it." So it got me wondering, what on earth actually happens when you pour gas, or I said that again, when you pour fuel? Can you believe I'm paid to talk? And somehow I get this stuff backwards. Anyway, when you pour Coca-Cola into the gas tank, what actually happens? Now, I have theories about what would happen. Now, when you pour the classic way that, people have done to vandalize another car, which, by the way, when you vandalize someone's car, you are like the scourge of society. You are a cretin. You are the most diabolical type of person walking on the planet. But I digress. People have traditionally poured sugar in someone's gas tank if they want to disable that car. And what that does is sugar in gasoline doesn't dissolve in the same way that it does in water. It just acts like it doesn't dissolve, it just stays granular. And then that granular sugar, it's basically the same difference as pouring, sand into the gas tank. It's going to get sucked up into the fuel pickup sock, into the fuel filter, and clog that. And if it makes it past that, it's going to clog up the fuel injectors or the jets in the carburetor. People have been doing this for decades, by the way. But it got me thinking, right? Coca-Cola is different, though. The sugar in it is not granular. It's been, it's in a liquid form. In fact, the sugar in it comes from being corn syrup instead of actual granular processed sugar. So what would happen? Honestly, what would happen if you did that? And obviously, I have theories. I can speculate on this, but I would rather get someone who knows a thing or two about cars. Yes, he is friend of the show. You have heard him here many times before, though not recently. It's been a couple months since I've had him on. I think that's rude. I should have him on the show a little more often. He is a mechanic by trade. His name is OBD1 Kenobi. Brian, welcome to the show.
What's up, Matt?
Okay, so I have been talking a little bit about Coca-Cola in gas tanks. And what would actually happen? And I mentioned earlier that, when you do sugar in a gas tank, that's just clogging up the fuel pickup and the fuel filter because the sugar doesn't actually dissolve. And allegedly that's what happens, that it's no different than just pouring sand into the gas tank as well. So, but the question is, what would happen then with Coca-Cola? That is entirely different. It's got water in it. What do you think would happen from a mechanical perspective?
I mean, if it went straight through it, wasn't sitting in the tank, I imagine it would just go straight through it. Probably cause some temporary drivability, maybe even stall. But other than that, I can't really think of what would happen. I'd have to try it myself, I think.
I think that's something we both might have to try on something here as well.
Yeah, you know how I am. I'm very skeptical until I try something.
Yep. And this might be something we actually have to do. Now, then the question is, if you assume that the Coca-Cola behaves more like water does, then how does that behave in a fuel tank? Have you dealt with water in fuel tanks before and how that runs?
Yeah, we have. I would say that I have actually messed with using Coca-Cola to clean a gas tank or gas tank parts before. I don't know if you've ever tried that, Matt.
I haven't. I've used Coca-Cola on a battery terminal, but I've never tried to clean fuel system parts with it.
Oh, that's another fantastic use too, is battery terminals. They work really good for battery terminals.
Oh, yeah.
I have actually put water, WD-40, obviously gasoline, probably some other sorts of cleaners around the shop, and threw some injectors and some fuel pumps. And so far, all is good. However, I do know that often a gas tank that's contaminated with a significant amount of water, since it won't mix, obviously, with the gas, it likes to float or settle, and it will eventually, the pump will suck it up like raw, and all of a sudden, the fuel rail will become completely full of water, depending on how much water there is, and the car will probably stall or run incredibly sluggish for a second.
Okay, and would there be any risk then of just hydrolocking it because you're dumping straight water at that point from the injectors into the cylinders?
Well, you have to remember those injectors are still opening at the expected intervals for regular gasoline. So in theory, you're not really adding any more liquid than you would be with gasoline. So it would not hydrolock.
Okay, so more like a sudden and accidental injection of water methanol, like how race cars do it.
Yeah, the only way it would hydrolock is just like if it was with gasoline, wouldn't have to be water, but if one of those injectors hung open, with the car off or something, and bled the fuel pressure and volume into one cylinder port or something like that, that would cause a hydrolock. But while it's running and it sucks up some water, no, it'll be fine.
Okay.
Just steam clean.
It's just a steam cleaner. There you go. So then basically what brought about this whole idea was that a listener sent in a screenshot of a piece of clickbait that said, simple trick to lower car fuel consumption by 55%. It's a clickbait on a website, okay? It's like one of those ads at the bottom of a website. And it shows somebody pouring... It shows someone pouring a bottle of Coca-Cola into a fuel filler neck with that caption underneath it. Now, you said you actually have cleaned fuel system parts with Coca-Cola. Could that actually increase the fuel economy by some weird way of cleaning out the sludge out of injectors or cleaning carbon off the back of the valves? What do you think?
Oh, man, I feel like I'm going to shoot myself in the foot with all this theory here. If it were... I would say if it was something removed from the system and then cleaned on the bench, that would make sense. But I think putting it directly into the gas tank with maybe a 2-liter, even at best, probably wouldn't do much good, if at all anything, likely just harm.
Okay. So at the end of the day, then, you really are reducing the fuel consumption because you're disabling the car, and if it does not run, you cannot burn the fuel.
Oh my God, I've never thought of it that way.
Think of it that way.
That's perfect, Matt.
That's actually decreasing the fuel economy or the fuel consumption by 100%. The ad only stated 55%. So
we basically eliminated carbon emissions. If the car can't run, then there's no emissions to be had.
Mind blown. Mind blown. There you go. Oh my God. Well, I guess that doesn't necessarily bring closure to this question. I think what we're going to have to do is
No, it doesn't, does it?
is get one of the many sub, $200 cars that you have and just try it and see what happens.
I think we got some spare fuel pumps we're going to have to annihilate here soon.
I think so. This sounds like a plan, Brian. That's awesome. I want to thank you for joining me on the show. And I guess we have to stay tuned. Let's figure out what happens here for sure. We got to know.
Yeah, we got to know.
Awesome.
I need to know too now.
Yeah. You see, again, completely eliminate fuel usage with the Coca-Cola. So there we go. Awesome. Brian, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, no problem, Matt.
Okay, so now I guess you know, or maybe more perhaps you don't know, the answers to questions you never thought you had. I think this is something you'll want to keep an eye out for on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page. We're going to try this. We're going to block out some time here in the upcoming weeks, see what happens, play with some Coca-Cola, play with some fuel for no other reason than, because we can. And I think I'll go ahead and post that on the freshly minted Automotive ADHD TikTok page. Yep, there's going to be a lot of fun stuff there. If you scroll over to that right now, if you happen to be on TikTok, there's already a good list of videos that are going to be that are fun. There's me working on the garage. There's me discovering why on earth you shouldn't cheap out on CV joints with my S2000. I think you'll find this interesting. And of course, if you want to get your automotive ADHD fix between episodes, I think that is going to be a good way for you to do that. And of course, I do want to thank you for joining me on this edition of the show. Send those car sounds in to be entered for a chance to win the keychain and the $25 gift card to a auto parts store. Matt at throttlewarrior.com, facebook.com/automotive ADHD. You can subscribe to Find Podcasts and this one wherever those are downloaded. And I will see you same time, same place next week when we cause the failure of the astral gate and plunge the universe into chaos. See you then.